Hey everyone, today I wanted to go over some new and very exciting news that we have for Monster Hunter Now. This is Capcom's latest Monster Hunter game on mobile devices, which as of the time of this recording is now currently during a soft launch. So basically, if you live in certain countries, you should be able to have access to the game already. I believe that those countries are Canada, Hong Kong, Singapore, and Sweden. But if you're using a VPN, you should be able to, of course, have full access to the game in whatever country it is that you live in. Today, I want to go over something really interesting that the original social media account introduced, and that was the notion that, yes, indeed, there's only going to be 6 weapons available at launch. This is something that I spoke about in a separate video as to why they chose the weapons that they did. Maybe were they considering introducing others but decided to leave them out? Maybe sword and shield, great sword, long sword, hammer, light bow gun, and bow are just simpler weapons to use, so maybe they just decided to leave the more complicated weapons for introducing post-launch, or whatever the case was. They certainly had an interesting discussion topic regarding that. Since then, their social media basically confirmed that more weapons will be added in throughout a periodic period. So basically, as more content ends up getting dropped into the game, more weapons will make themselves available in the game. And interestingly enough, they decided to ask players which weapons are their favorites, but more importantly, which ones they want to see first. So in this video, I want to try to talk a little bit about not just what the hell did this actually mean and why are they taking this interesting approach, but more importantly, which weapons you guys want to see introduced first and foremost. Obviously, there's 14 main weapons available in the mainline game. There's about 4 other weapons, I want to say, that have been available through other, other releases of Monster Hunter, not mainline games. So it will be interesting to see if they decide to include those at the end of the day. But which one of the main weapons that are currently not available in the game would make the cut first and subsequently thereafter? Simply, they just said in their social media page, have you seen Monster Hunter Now's weapons reveals? More weapons will be added in future updates. What weapons would you like to see hunt monsters with in the real world? Check out the weapons if you haven't already. Shape your favorites and or share your favorites in the comments. And then they basically put up an image that says, what kind of weapons would you like to see in Monster Hunter Now? Longsword, sword and shield, great sword, longsword, hammer, light bow gun, and bow. Let us know in the comments below. And of course, in typical fashion, everyone just started naming all the other weapons. You know, charged blade, insect glaive, lance, gun lance, you name it, heavy bow gun, etc. And you know, at the end of the day, I'm not necessarily sure this is the best route, because essentially what it means is that the most popular weapons are the ones that people are gonna vote on. If they turn it into a voting thing, most likely it's just gonna be the most popular weapons, which of course means that things like lance is probably gonna get left in the dust. Maybe heavy bowgun, insect glaive certainly are in peril in that regard. Sure, heavy bowgun is really good, but you know, maybe not as popular as others, you know, and lesser popular weapons are already in there, like sword and shield, hammer, and greatsword to some degree. Now, I would actually argue greatsword is probably mid-tier. Longsword, bow, and light bowgun are certainly popular weapons. So things like charged blade, I would imagine, gets an easier vote. Dual blades, of course, I spoke about that in the other video, where dual blades, I'm just surprised that they didn't include them. So I certainly would love to see what you guys suggest would be the next mainline weapon that they introduce. But more importantly, why are they taking this approach? I'm not necessarily sure why. A lot of people have suggested that maybe it's just to keep development the speed of development and of course the cost down, so they could continually keep dropping in content. However, one would argue that weapons are kind of like the biggest factor, especially when you're trying to tailor in your character, whenever you're deciding to pick up on your gameplay and things of that nature. Whichever weapon you want to play as, you know, is obviously one of those key factors. One of the arguments for the reason why they just decided to add 6 weapons is to just keep things simple. And this is one of the arguments that I tried to at the very least convey in my previous video. With 6 weapons, they can keep things relatively balanced. They know how to keep things simple, and adding one more weapon after another would hopefully address the fact that some weapons are not as good as others have been in the past. It could also open the door and the possibility for new weapons that have not been available in, again, mainline games to finally be introduced, and maybe even the introduction of an entirely new weapon that we haven't seen in the past. Certainly, I have a couple of videos when it comes to Monster Hunter 6 that I would love to see some weapon types make their way into the game. So ultimately, we'll just have to wait and see. But I do have to wonder at the end of the day what the main developer idea is behind just kind of like segmenting weapons off. Is it one of those things where like they have a roadmap but they haven't necessarily revealed it just yet? Hey, X and X and X amount of monsters are going to be introduced. Let's say 3 monsters within the next 3 months, a monster per month, and essentially in the 4th month they add a brand new weapon. Maybe that's the route that they decide to take. We don't necessarily know. Obviously, higher difficulties is also something that a lot of players are going to be interested to see, because everything when it comes to mobile games is numbers based. A lot of players just like to see big numbers kind of flash up on the screen, and higher difficulty content with new monsters, higher difficulty weapons and stuff like that could also be a different route that they take. So while they are treating these weapons like introductory, again, sword and shield, great sword, long sword, hammer, light bow gun, and bow, maybe the other weapons are going to be treated as more specialized weapons. This is something that we have seen in other mobile games do in the past. One weapon leads to another, but you can certainly revert to the previous one for more usable and accessibility. You know, some weapons are just easier to deal with monsters. One of the things that we do know based on all of the gameplay that we have seen for the game so far is that elemental weapon changes are going to be big key factors here, and they've made that relatively an easy transition. Before every single hunt, you can basically go to your loadout. You can have some pre-equipped preset loadout armors and weapons. You can just quickly tap, select an armor loadout or a specific elemental weapon, and go right into the hunt. You know, abuse those elemental weaknesses to some monsters and be pretty much ready to go without much delay. That is certainly something that a lot of players are going to be taking advantage of whenever possible, and at the end of the day, I do hope that they expound on that, especially with the introduction of more weapons, but only time will tell. But that's about all the information that I have for you guys today. Certainly found the entire discussion regarding the addition of weapons and then turning it into essentially a little bit of a popularity contest to see which one of the weapons get introduced next. We'll just have to wait and see which one they decide. But that's about all the information that I have for you guys today. If you're brand new to my channel though, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Hit the bell to receive notifications when the videos go up. And as always, thank you so much for watching. See ya.